فلسطين 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 يا حبيبة يا فلسطين. Hello Hisham, how's it going?
Hello, it's great.
Whereabouts are you located in the world?
I'm in Beirut. I've been living in Lebanon for the past 27 years
Yep.
and been living in Beirut, specifically the capital, for the past 5 years.
Nice. I have a lot of Lebanese friends. They're Druze, some Christian, and yeah, I always dreamed to go to Lebanon. I was always very.
You should.
They say it's the Paris of the Middle East.
Well, that was probably a propaganda type thing back in the days. They used to say it was Switzerland of the Middle East as
Ah,
well.
that's right.
But
Yeah,
I think we have to identify with something that is Western for people to understand what it feels like.
yeah, it's probably the case. Beautiful. You saw a clip from a previous podcast that I just released, and that was a pretty tough podcast for me to do. Uh, but I don't shy away from anything really. I think it's important for people to be able to speak their mind and their opinions, and I think that's an important thing in this day and age, especially with social media. You reached out to on one of the reels, and then we got speaking, and I invited you to come on, and now we're here, which is pretty cool that we can do this. You know, you're in Beirut and I'm in Melbourne. It's like literally probably the opposite sides of the world,
Yes.
but we're able to have this conversation, and I think that's a beautiful thing. So I have a few questions for you, if that's all right with you.
I'm ready.
Cool. Well, what was life like growing up as a Palestinian refugee in Lebanon, in the camp?
So to give a brief idea on my upbringing, I'm a Lebanese-Palestinian because my grandparents were expelled from Palestine to Lebanon as refugees,
Yep.
and in the 1950s they acquired the Lebanese nationality because to be very frank about it, the government was giving, or the president back then was allowing Palestinians to get the Lebanese ID if they are Christian mostly. And they had to pay a lot of money. So my family was able to do that. They got the Lebanese nationality. And my father was born in Lebanese. I was born in Lebanese. But it was something that I had to learn about that we are Palestinians, mostly because we had to go from the Emirates where I was born, because my family fled during the Lebanese civil war to be somewhere away from the fighting. So when we got back to Lebanon, it was after the Lebanese war ended, and we had no place to be other than the refugee camp because we didn't have enough money to buy a house or to rent a house. So we got a family's house that they weren't using inside the refugee camp in Dubai. And that's my first part of understanding why we are living in this place. Why is it called the camp? What is the camp? Why are people what is the difference between me and the people who don't have the Lebanese ID? And it was a learning experience for me to go through all of that. Of course, as a kid, I didn't know much about it, but as I grew up and I started researching or asking, I started learning bit by bit. So, growing as a Lebanese Palestinian living in a refugee camp, uh, coming as a child with an accent that is different than the Lebanese surrounding, that was my first case exposure to discrimination.
Oh.
Because even people in the camp that we used to go to school with in the school bus, they would go and mock my accent that I say. For example, they say foueke in Lebanese, in the Palestinian accent we say fawaki. And that was something that shocked them because, oh, why are you speaking like that? Oh my God, you're Lebanese. Why are you speaking like that? And he has a he has a Palestinian ID, and I have a Lebanese ID, and we're just switching accents. So that was a small part of the discrimination that we go through. Um, and I think we start to, as Palestinian Christians, I think we are not as closed in the camps. So it's an open village type. And we go into the Lebanese society and we work and we go to school. And so we're more integrated, I think. And we had to adapt by changing the accent to go incognito, to go
Under the radar.
unplugged. That yeah. So we had to do that. I had to do that from that incident back then. And later on, I started realizing that no, I should be a little more proud of who I am, talk about it. I have the privilege as a Lebanese person or a person who's carrying a Lebanese ID who legally should not be discriminated against, to speak for the Palestinians, speak for my culture and my identity and my heritage, because I have this little bit of leverage as opposed to Palestinians with Palestinian refugee ID.
Hmm. What does home mean to you now, especially if you've never lived in Palestine?
Not allowed to go there. If I go there, I think I would not be able to come back. And I wouldn't want to go to an occupied place. So it does not. In my head, home as Palestine is not the utopia that is sometimes being taught or recited. My grandma told me about Palestine a little bit about her experience there, and not about the not the politics side, not the ultra polished fairy tale type. She told me about stories of the olive groves that her father had, the way they used to go and for the harvest, the way she used to spy on her sisters so that they wouldn't talk to boys behind her father's back. These type of stuff that are
Yeah.
more family memories than patriotic stuff. And
Yeah.
I think that was their coping mechanism back then, so that they wouldn't go. Maybe they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to remember that, or maybe they didn't have this. A patriotic feeling that we should talk about. We should, the way we are getting more heated up about it. So for now, home is here, is Beirut, is Lebanon, and I'm afraid that as the grandson of refugees, that I might have to be a refugee again because of the situation that is happening, and it's because of the same culprit.
This is the same culprit. That leads me to the next question that I have for you. For the people who don't know, what is the Nakba, and what does it mean to your family?
So the Nakba is an event that happened in 1948, back when Palestine was occupied or under the British mandate. And back then, there was the Balfour Declaration
Yep.
that was between the Zionists and the British mandate to give this piece to Jewish people coming from Europe mostly,
Yep.
to take it and build Israel, the land for the Jews. And after so many different incidents that happened, whether it's attacking the British or then the Palestinians who felt threatened by these European Jews or felt that all Jews were doing that, they started attacking the Jews, and it led on to the 1948, where خلاص, it was that time when the Jewish entities or the Zionist entities decided to take control and um, start working for the Israeli territories. And in 1948, there was this mass expulsion and attacking villages, telling people to leave. And people left in the same way that they've been telling people to leave Gaza, to leave the north of Gaza and go south, go for safety. And people felt the same way that, oh, we're gonna go for a bit and then we're gonna come back. So some parts of my family or the village that my family comes from. It's on the current borders with Lebanon. North of Palestine, south of Lebanon is right there next to the sea. So they went to Lebanon, and a lot of people from South Lebanon also fled away from the conflict zones. And they resided in places, they rented homes to stay in, thinking that it's going to be a small amount of time. So they left with only their keys or maybe really small important documents that they had, but they didn't feel the need to pack up and leave because they weren't told that. you're leaving permanently.
Yep.
So back then, people left, and they took the Israeli forces. They started taking over the villages and expelling people and fighting with people. And of course, people who were trying to. Some people fought against that. Some people couldn't. And there are documented cases where people were fighting. Um, there are also stories of how the Israelis were attacking the British as well. There are stories of when some Palestinians were attacking the Jews because it was like an umbrella term. There wasn't a Zionist entity that we're against. Some families kept Jewish people, Jewish neighbors in their homes. They hid them from the whoever was fighting, and uh, it is also talked about and documented. So back
Wow.
then, uh, people left, and they never came back, and they're never allowed to come back. And some of them went to Lebanon, some of them to Syria, to Jordan. Some stayed in Palestine in different villages. People from the village where we come from, Al Bassa, they left south. They or lived in Kfar Baram, a neighboring village. And they're not allowed to come back. Now Al Bassa is a settlement. The village itself is destroyed, and they have like an industrial zone in some parts. But next to it, they established a settlement called Shlomi. And the only thing remaining from the old town is two churches and a mosque, and the rest is ruins.
Wow. How many people were displaced in the Nakba? It was the hundreds of thousands, wasn't there?
Yes, I don't have the exact number. I don't know if it was 700,000 or something like that.
I think it was around 7 to 900,000 people. It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people, man. Yeah. It's
Yeah, just to think that
it's
now
so
in
sad.
such a small place as Gaza, it's 2 million, 2.3, 2.2 million persons in this small piece of land.
It's tiny. Gaza's tiny. I have a friend.
Yeah.
When I was 12 years old, I met a Palestinian boy. He came to Australia because the IDF threw him into a burning tire yard and melted his fingers together, and his face was melted. So they brought him here to do emergency surgery. They spent $200,000 on the surgery to
Wow.
to help him, and he was so happy. Even though he had these horrific burns to his body as a 1.5-year-old child, he was still such a happy guy. And I met him when I was 12 years old, and he was just exuding such happiness and joy. And I said to him, would you like to stay in Australia, or what's your plan? And he said, I have to go back. All my family, all my friends, all my brothers, sisters, they're in Gaza. So I don't have I have to go back. And I didn't hear from him since. It's hard. It's hard, but to be,
It,
I asked Yehuda, but I said to him, I have a friend that experienced quite hardship from the IDF, and he just said, how do you know? It could be bullshit, and that hurt me a lot. Just to be dismissive like that. I'm happy to have people on, but you don't have to be dismissive. It's not right. It's not right.
yeah, exactly. Like I'm fine with hearing opinions that I do not agree with, but I would love to have the space to talk about it. I've
Yeah.
talked to Israelis online, mostly in comments,
Yep.
or sometimes in DMs. Um, I don't like the dismissive tone of
It's gaslighting.
that they use. Yeah, I'm fine with being with talking about facts that I don't agree with. Like the things that you mentioned about the PLO in Lebanon and the Christians in Lebanon, I do not agree with a lot of it, but I will have to swallow the hard truth.
Exactly. Exactly. How do you keep your family's history alive, especially for younger people who didn't live through it?
In 2013, I started a cooking blog. I lost the light.
Sorry, where did we leave off? Did I ask?
So
I think I
you're
asked.
asking me,
I,
how do you keep the tradition and the stories of
yes, and
for
you're talking about your
generation?
culinary expertise and your how you're
Yes.
a chef. Yeah, beautiful. Tell me.
In 2013, I started a cooking blog. and I started documenting recipes that I cook in the kitchen.
Yep.
And I wanted to document some recipes that are family specific, things that we make as people in Palestinians in a refugee camp. For example, Mughrabi is a dish that we do differently than the Lebanese version. We have Easter traditions that we prepare, and I always shared about it, always talked about it, always served it when I was able to. And after that, I got experiences to go and cook in certain places to serve for people.
Beautiful.
And in 2021, I published my first book, which is mostly Lebanese. It's Lebanese called Beirut.
Yep.
And I also had some of my Palestinian side. And in the second book, Taboon was a dedication more to Palestinian people, but it says sweets and savory from the Lebanese bakery. But because I'm Lebanese and Palestinian, I had to put all of it. And
Yep.
the culinary scene is mixed because we have dishes that are coming from Syria, from Palestine, and we make in Lebanon. So
Yep.
a lot of like the popular sweets are originating from different areas, but we make them. And although we try sometimes to say that this is Lebanese, but at the end of the day, we can acknowledge that this is coming originally from Syria. For example, Halawat al-Jibn,
Yep.
or there is a popular version there. So in these books, in my presence in the culinary field, I try to talk about uh, a little bit of history in these recipes, about the cultural appropriation that we have been subjected to for the past 80 years. Uh, as much as possible in a cookbook, but in my appearances elsewhere, I try to mention it even more in details because sometimes people don't want to read about it.
Well, I think it's a beautiful thing that you've done, and you've intertwined the culinary experience with also the experience of where the food came from and the history behind it. It's a beautiful thing. I was looking at some of the foods, and I really like the mushakan. I think I don't know if I I don't know if I pronounced it properly, but that looks amazing. I'd love to try. I'd love to try that dish one day.
If you have a Palestinian nearby, please ask them to do it. I think they would be happy to share. And each one prepares it a different way because the one in the book is made into a rolls the Lebanese way, but the traditional Palestinian way made with taboon bread
Mm,
um, is made with layers of bread, caramelized onions, olive oil, summa, and chicken on top. So it's
looks so
a hearty
tasty.
dish that yes.
Thank you, thank you. I So the next question is: religion and land are deeply connected into the Middle East. Do you think people can share these things peacefully?
Oh, I have strong opinions about religion. I was raised as Christian. I was practicing for most of my life.
Yep.
I'm still faithful, but I don't practice as much. And going out of the institution a little bit and seeing things as objectively as I can, made me see how religious institutions are using people to control, to fuel hatred and anger, to establish dominance. I would love for
Definitely.
religion to be a personal thing, yeah, and not as a political thing being used. I would love to have everyone as equal under laws and not under religious rulings.
Mm.
And I think that would be a lot better than having religious ruling or religious governments where everyone can practice whatever they want and not establishing dominance over one another.
I think for the many thousands of years, many centuries, that was the case. But I think now that we're living in modern times and we've got all this technology, social media, I think what you're saying makes sense to me. The
And I,
religion should be found from within. It's not something that we need to look outwards and we need churches or this and that to tell us what to do or to control. It's for a long time it was a means of control, but I think the personal liberation of the individual is found from within.
I mean, it's great to have this connection with people around you, to find similar or like-minded people to share these experiences with, but sometimes looking out even further outward into people who are sharing a human experience rather than a religious one.
Yeah.
I have a connection with God. I'm mentioning that God is above, but he
Yeah.
can be anywhere, or she or they.
That's right.
Um, but also there is the connection to people around, and I think this is what people miss sometimes. Religious people, they think that, oh, if I'm good with God, I'm fine, but they forget that people around them are also people that need to be shared with.
Mm.
And I found sometimes people who are not practicing or not religious are people that I can connect with even more sometimes, because there is less of a barrier
They're more open.
in between. Yeah, or even sometimes I have very religious people around. I have a best friend who is veiled,
Yep.
and, and we have a very close connection to each other, and we're very close to one another. None of us is trying to force anything onto the other person. And this is where I think it enriches us rather than separates us.
I think that's a good idea. And then also maybe to to share cultures through food. That's the meeting ground because everyone needs to eat, you know what I mean? So it's like different cultures can, instead of like trying to, impose religion or anything like that, it's like, hey, you bring me some of your food, I'll bring you some of mine. This, you can try some of this, we'll try some of that, everyone will get along. I think that's more.
Yeah, and even in a small country like Lebanon, my friend is from the Bekaa, which is the valley or the plateau in the middle of Lebanon, and we're more coastal, being in Beirut or in Dubai.
Yep.
I didn't really have a village. But we have our own traditions on certain holidays or certain feasts, and she has her own, and or her family has their own, and they prepare food in a certain way on different feasts or different holidays. And we always exchange. She asks me, "Why do you do this on that Eid or that holiday?" And we invite her over sometimes, or she invites us over, and we share these. We ask questions about her religion, about her practices, on why people do this, and even the wrong stuff that are generally known about Muslims, for example, or about Christians.
Yep.
We have the guts to point out the wrong stuff and say that this is a bit extremist from people that they do that. But this is what is taught to us. This is what we know. This is what we practice. This is the middle ground that people should be on. And these are the extremists, whether here or there.
Mm.
And having the courage to say that is something very valuable. To have a self-reflection on my own religion and say what is wrong in it, how people are doing it wrong. I'm not the righteous one, but I see certain practices that I feel are uh, odd, and they're making people get away from religion or are making people hate this religion.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about, it might be a bit hard to get that out of a Zionist, but that leads me to the next question I'm going to ask you. Some people believe history or holy books give them the right to control land. How do you feel about that?
Uh, I mean, there were people on the lands before holy books. Should we go back even further?
That's true.
Uh, I don't think holy books are geographically accurate, or they're enough proof to give leverage or to give supremacy to anyone over one another. Um, yeah, and they shouldn't be used as such.
Yeah, I don't think so either. What is daily life really like for Palestinians under occupation or siege?
From the experiences that I've been told by Palestinians I've met it was recent actually. I haven't talked to Palestinians in Palestine until recent times. Uh, those who are living on the occupied lands in what is called Israel, they are told, or we are told, that they live as normal citizens, but they are always afraid because they're considered, or they are perceived in actions there as second-class citizens.
Hmm.
Uh, and just as we are seeing now, and some, I don't know, maybe it's one incident, but there are Jewish settlers in Palestine
Yep.
who are denying Christians and Muslims from entering shelters now while there are bombing around.
Is this happening in the West
So
Bank?
no, this is in Tel Aviv, I think.
Oh, okay. Yep, yep.
So I have relatives who are living in Haifa, in Nazareth. I have relatives living in Haifa, some in Nazareth. I talk to them. Some of them are afraid to speak of what is happening because they think they are being monitored, or they are, and they would prefer not to engage in such conversations. Those who are living in the West Bank are afraid of speaking because they know that they, if pass a checkpoint, whether they're going from the West Bank towards Jordan so that they can leave or travel, they might get detained because of something they said on social media, because of being present or next to a protest or a demonstration or anything. They can be detained for anything. Uh, Not to mention the long hours at checkpoints, not to mention that they're not allowed to communicate with people in Gaza. If someone from Gaza or needs to go to the West Bank or vice versa, they need a lot of paperwork from the Israelis. Even if they want to go from the West Bank towards Jordan, there is Israeli checkpoints and Israeli border control, and they have to go through it. They have to get approval from the Israelis to do anything, to get married, to travel, to work. So they are being controlled by Israel, even if they're saying that, oh, you're free in Gaza or free in West Bank. Um, and not to mention also the discrimination that they experience with the settlements that are being built in the West Bank. If we see the map, the West Bank, we see it as one whole chunk, but in that it's divided into three parts. One that is controlled by the Palestinian Authority, and it's really small. And then there is one that is larger and it's controlled by the Israeli Authority and Palestinian Authority and the Israelis. And there is one where settlements are being built, and it's the largest part. And I think this was part of the Oslo Accord, I think in 67, but the Israelis have been expanding and expanding and eating away from the Palestinian lands. And I think this is no way to achieve peace if you're expanding and expanding and getting more and saying that, oh, we're giving you land, we're free, you're free, you had the opportunity, but oh, you're not using it, so we're gonna chomp at it. So in these lands, for example, in Hebron and Khalil, you have settlers living close by where roads are designated for Israelis and not allowed to have any Palestinians go through it. You have the ground floor in the souk, for example, that is Palestinian, but the top floors are occupied by Israelis, and they throw trash and they throw sewage water on the Palestinians. So they started having either plastic sheets or having like a mesh net to catch all the trash that they throw at them. You have
What?
streets,
That's
yeah, and
crazy.
you have to uh, please watch videos or documentaries that are being done years ago about Al Khalil or Hebron. And they show you in video footage about these apartheid that
I have
the
noticed that on the
Israelis.
maps, slowly, the West Bank just gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and Israel's just been getting larger and larger and larger. And I
And even
think,
on the map, if not on the map, you have to look at the closer lives of people. So in Al Khalil, in Hebron, some people cannot go out of their house from the main entrance because Israel took the road and they made it Israeli road.
oh
So
my
they have
God,
to go someplace away from a window, or they open a new door somewhere away to go around to get to the street or to get to their shops. Or
are you
so
serious?
these
In front of their own
things
house.
that irritate your presence in that area.
I did notice that there were a few videos I saw a couple years ago of Jewish settlers moving into Palestinians' actual homes and kicking Palestinians out, and Israel was bringing in Israelis from anywhere, and they were saying, "Come live in
Jewish
these
people
in
from
these in
anywhere.
these areas. As long as you're a Jew, you can live in these
Yeah.
areas." And you know, I'm guessing that's to drive the Palestinians out, so then they can claim more land. Like you said, there's like a claw grab. Um, there's video evidence and there's proof of them doing that. It's not like made up lies and stories. It's physical evidence that
The most
they're
famous
doing that.
one is Jacob, Yaqub. who came from Brooklyn, and he was taking someone's house, and it was on video, and he
Is he the
says that
fat
if I don't
one?
as well, yes.
Yeah, I remember that video. That's the video that I thought in my head straight away. He had a big gut, and he was telling him get out of your house, and but it was their house. He took someone's
Yeah.
house.
And there was also Sheikh Jarrah a couple of years ago, and Masafri Yata that was this past year, and there was a documentary that won an Oscar about that. The thing is, Israelis are in control and they make up the rules. So back in 1948, they made a rule that if a place that is abandoned for a certain amount of time, anyone or an Israeli can go in and claim it. But these people who abandon their houses, abandoned, I'm gonna put it into quotation marks,
Yep,
uh, they don't know about this law because they are expelled. They are refugees somewhere else, so they're not allowed to come back and reclaim their houses. So it was the absentee law. I forgot what the name is, but it was something about that. And this allowed them to go and take a lot of houses. And back when the fighting was happening, I think between 48 and 67, there was something where Jordan took part of the West Bank, I think, and some properties were registered under Jordanian authority, or they bought the land and they gave it to Palestinians. So the Israelis are rolling back on that now, and they're taking lands because they're saying, oh, it's not Palestinian to begin with. It was either Israeli, or you're violating the land. For example, in Sheikh Jarrah, they're saying that you don't have the ownership of the house. It's either Jordanian or it was Israelis because it was bought by someone. So they're expelling families from that whole neighborhood to have Israeli settlers. And even now in Jenin, for example, Jenin is also is in the West Bank, and it has a refugee camp there. So imagine being Palestinian, expelled from your villages to live in Palestine in a refugee camp. So they're expelling people from the refugee camp and they're destroying it. And they keep ordering people to, because they say they're violating because they didn't take permits or whatever, to demolish their own homes.
that's
So imagine
diabolical.
you building your own home and they come to tell you that, oh, your house is illegal. Please demolish it or we're going to demolish it ourselves.
Oh my god! All right, and we're back. We're back. Awesome. Um, when people talk about rebuilding Gaza, what do Palestinians actually want? Freedom, dignity, something else? You know?
That that is also a hard question. I think for me, as someone from the outside, I cannot really tell what the people there want. Um, I think they should live under no occupation. They should be able to make their own ruling. I hope it would be free from extremism, uh, regardless who takes control. Um, and I think they should be able to live equally as anyone in the world should.
Yeah, I think that makes sense considering we're 2025. Poor things, it's
That's
like,
basic human rights.
yeah, considering what northern Gaza looks like right now. And I was recently speaking to a Lebanese friend, and he was telling me that they're auctioning off the land there now. They're auctioning off land in northern Gaza to the
They
highest
have
bidders.
something that in the US, I think there were real estate gatherings where they were selling lands in North Gaza. So the thing with Gaza is that it was functioning normally within the constraints that they had then. Um, but people sometimes forget that this is not very normal. Their life was okay under occupation because they were kind of left to their own, but now they are romanticizing a better time pre-October 7 uh, because they are in a very worse place now. But back then, they already had universities, they had businesses going on, but it was all controlled by the Israelis. They have to get permits to do anything. They cannot go out. They have to get permits to import stuff. Israel has to import that because no one is allowed to get close, even by sea. They don't have a port. The airport was destroyed when the Israelis left in 2005, I think. Um, so it was still controlled, but they made a life out of it. They made the best out of it because we cannot just sit and ponder and cry about it.
Mm.
So that's why there's a lot of people who are reminiscing on old times in Gaza pre-October 7. But it still was under occupation and under control of Israelis.
Mm. So when they talk about rebuilding it, like Donald Trump saying we're gonna, you know how he talks, we're gonna build this biggest buildings, and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that, and they're gonna build a water park, ski park. I don't know what they're gonna do. Do you think that's a pipe dream, or like if Donald, because what Donald Trump said, he's gonna tell the Palestinians move out for a while and then you can come back. That's like the Nakba over again. That's kind of scary for someone to move out of their land and say, yeah, no worries, we're gonna fix it up, beautiful, and then we're gonna let you back in. As what? The the slaves to run the city, but it's not gonna be their city anymore. Like it's a very very complicated situation.
It at least allow the people who are in Palestine to go back to their villages. There are villages that are okay, or they have lands to for people to go and build, but they already changed the whole scenery of Palestine. So no one, and they made sure that no one has their documentation of proof that they own the land or own anything in the land. So, for example, my family, even if we're allowed to go there now, we don't have any proof because we didn't take any proof. My grandma didn't take any proof. They had keys, and that was the only thing. And there's no doors for people to find where their houses used to be. Um, so going back to a colonial fantasy by politicians, it is the Nakba all over again. Go and we're gonna rebuild and ask you to come back. And then when they're not asked to come back, people are going to revolt and they're going to complain that their living situation and wherever they got relocated to are not that great. In the same way, refugees in Palestine, in Jenin, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Egypt, if there are, I don't know, in Jordan, refugees don't live a great life. They make a living out of wherever they are because I think we have this tendency to make the best out of it, and I think this is human nature, probably not not only us, but
Do what we
if
can
we
to
complain
survive.
and we resist and we revolt against this living situation that we are in, we're gonna get called out, or we're gonna get squashed, or we're going to um, get expelled again. But we forget, where did we start? Why did we get here?
Mm.
Why is there refugees in the first place? What did we do to the place that they used to live in? It's the same situation with Syrian refugees in Lebanon, because at some point we had double the population of Lebanon and Syrian refugees, or at least half of it. More. We had around 2 million Syrian refugees living in Lebanon, and that is a lot. The last documented count of Lebanese or people in Lebanon was 4 million. I think we're up to 6 million maybe. So to have 2 million Syrians in Lebanon was a heavy burden, even though we got a lot of aid from abroad, but the government is corrupt and they took a lot of it.
The government's big
So,
corrupt.
yeah. So, having refugees here, and we complain about the refugees, but we forget that there is a reason that they became refugees, whether here or in any other part of the world. So how about we address what makes people refugees? And that is the root cause of this problem.
Would you say that in the direct vicinity surrounding the your part of the Middle East, that problem would be Israel?
Directly, yes. Uh, Indirectly, there's factors that are happening. The US is involved a lot in the region, whether direct or indirect, by enforcing sanctions, by um, messing with the politics and politicians. So
Oh,
somehow
America's good at
for
that. They've been doing it everywhere for a long time. I think everyone can see it now. They know. And now already Americans, they're talking table coffee conversations. Yeah. Yeah, we need regime change in Iran. They're already talking about the regime change. The guy's alive. He's not dead yet, you know.
they
But
already did that in
they talk about
70.
it like they're just having some food, they're just having some coffee, general conversation, and then they're determining another country's complete fate based on, it's because they're so, I guess, entitled in a way to do that to every other country. It's
I
crazy.
think they position themselves in a way that they can force whatever they need. So, for
Mm.
example, when I was talking about the displacement of Palestinians in Gaza and to build this fantasy of his, he said, "Oh, if Egypt and Jordan don't want to take the Palestinians, or they don't take the Gazans, because we're not saying Palestinians, if they don't want to take them, we're gonna force them to take them." So if the US cuts aid to Egypt or to Jordan, they already cut a lot of aid in lots of parts of the world, and they cut aid to Lebanon as well.
Yep.
Uh, if they do that, I think the countries have to comply. The governments have to comply. If they force sanctions onto them, they have to comply. So I think they have positioned themselves in a place of power where they can do that
They've,
effectively.
they've always been in a position of power. That's for sure. It's just I feel like people can see through it now, and especially with social media, you can tell what's right and wrong, you know, and it is what it is. But let me ask you the next question. There's a lot of debate about the phrase "from the river to the sea." What does this mean to you?
It 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 talks about the borders that people expect Palestine to be. It's the historical Palestine that as the mandate of Palestine from the River Jordan to the Mediterranean Sea. These are and they don't want more than that. They don't want to take Jordan. Jordan is now Jordan, and I think the current borders of what is known as Palestine is what is expected. There is a debate also about the Golan Heights that are occupied by Israel, and they, I think they made it a point that they're taking it and not giving it back, so they included it in the map.
Mm.
And there is this misconception about people using the map of Palestine and using the Israeli version, but I think most Palestinians, if not all, identify with the map that doesn't have the Golan Heights.
Mm. I I noticed that the phrase "from the river to the sea," Palestine will be free. Um, uh, Jewish people take that as a direct threat to their life, saying that it's a genocidal term. But I think it's I think if from a Palestinian perspective, I believe that it's hope that you know it's a hope for Palestine. That's the way I see it. I don't know. It's everyone's subjective. Everyone's allowed to have their own opinion. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, it's not about saying that from the river to the sea, we're gonna remove all the others. I don't
Mm.
want any sound bites from this to be taken away.
Oh, don't worry. I'm not going to do that.
No, not you. I think if it goes online, a lot
Yeah.
of trolls will be happy with that. Um, but it's not a call for genocide, because actually the Israelis have used this term or this phrase from the river to the sea, and but when we use it, it's a genocidal call for exterminating all Jews. It's not. It's not. It's that Palestinians want to live free on their land, on the land that they lived in for some long time. And this is a land for people who have been there. And it's not about exterminating Jews. It's about having the people who lived on this land to be there,
Yep.
whether they're Jews, whether they're Christians, Muslims, Druze, non-believers as well. So whoever was living there should have the right to live there. But having people who from different or different backgrounds to come and live just because they are of a certain religion. I mean, maybe I could trace myself back to being a Jew because I think we all lived there and we converted to Christianity, and maybe
Yeah.
we didn't convert to Islam later on. So if I go, maybe I could identify as a Jew, or if I become a Jew now, can I go and claim my grandparents' land?
How
I
far?
asked this
Yeah.
to a Holocaust uh, um, educator.
Oh,
I
okay.
asked this to a educator, and she said, "We all know that this is not how the way it works."
Hmm.
Okay.
I thought you were going to say Holocaust denier for a second, not
Ah,
educator.
I was surprised because I talked to her. I found her reel online and I commented on it the same
Yep.
way I did with yours.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, and then we started talking and seeing that, yeah, this is not the way to do it. And then she revealed that she is a very Israeli supporter and she supports uh, a Jewish state in this land. And I felt that, oh, you're really missing the point.
Yeah. I just want everyone to get along, man. Like if Palestinians and Israelis could live together in harmony, that would be amazing. But I think from the recent podcast I did with the Zionist, or just a pro-Israeli guy. He's a nice guy. He's a chef. He's really cool guy. Um, yeah, maybe they're just feeling very emotional right now, and they just don't feel it's possible. But I would love to see everyone just get along in that area, for the area to be rebuilt, and somehow for that generational trauma to be healed. Because there's so much generational trauma, man. And the worst thing is when you've got deep generational trauma, and then you get gaslit on top of that to say, "Oh, nah, that doesn't exist," you know.
Yeah. Exactly. And I'm only realizing how deeply this generational trauma is, and how we're not really having the time to heal from it because it keeps reopening. We keep feeling it, and we get fed and onto it, whether it's hiding in shelters or being displaced again, or hearing the bombs, or so my parents lived that, my grandparents lived that, and I hope my the next generation doesn't live that and it ends here. But I think having the Israelis and Palestinians live in peace um, would be a great thing. But I think they reached a point of no return now, with a huge mass of the Israelis believing in genociding the Palestinians and exterminating all Palestinians. And they've expressed that verbally and in actions. So I wonder how much of a regime change and mentality rehabilitation would have to be put to people for them to be able to accept that. Like, I don't think Palestinians out of nowhere they decided to go and bomb Israelis because they liked it, because Muslims are terrorists, because Palestinians are terrorists, and they prefer to have us killed than to live. You have to go and dig deeper into why they started doing that. Why are they preferring to die rather than live under this occupation? This is why. So when your reality and life is really that horrible and miserable, you would do anything to get out of it. I'm not justifying bombings or any acts of violence, but at some point you have to realize that how can I stop this? Not by bombing the people, not by imprisoning them. Maybe I can look at why they are resorting to acts of violence.
Hmm. How do you stay creative and hopeful when things around you just feel so heavy, man? How do you do it?
Delul.
You're making dishes while you can hear drones above you. You know, some crazy stuff's been happening while you've been writing and releasing your two books. How do you do it?
Yeah. that was writing the second book because I started writing the recipes or trying out the recipes, and then things started unfolding after October 7, and for me it was 3 months of just glued to the phone, scrolling. I wanted to take in everything just to feel like I'm involved. I'm not a spectator from far away.
Mm,
But then it started hitting us as well, and it was crippling for a long time. Being in the kitchen and trying things out and writing was a little bit of an escape for me. Detach myself, put on a video of something fun and light, or a crime horror stories, whatever, just to
yeah.
because it was less horrific than reality.
My God.
I used to sleep on those videos.
That's something.
Yeah.
Oh,
So the being in the kitchen and trying things out and writing is was an escape for me. And now cooking, I like to detach myself from the reality that I'm in and have this moment to just create something, because I'm better as active than just a passive spectator.
hmm. Is there a dish or memory from your kitchen that makes you feel the most connected to your roots?
مغربية مفتول. Maftool is a Palestinian version of couscous.
Yep.
It's being promoted as Israeli couscous because we were busy making food than marketing it abroad. Um,
So they're trying to steal
it's
the food too, huh? Sorry.
yeah, yeah. It's a reality because we when we were busy trying to fix the rubble that we're living in,
Mm.
uh, Israelis were taking our food and running with it and promoting it to Europe and the US, that this is Israeli food, this is food of the region and Levantine, Middle Eastern, while we had no say because we didn't have voices, we didn't have exposure in the media. And it's only now in the past maybe 10 years that people are looking at Lebanese, at Syrians, at Palestinians, and what they prepare food or how they prepare food. And already the Israelis have established that this is Israeli food, so they know it even more. So the Mughrabiye, it's probably coming from Maghreb, which is Morocco.
Yep.
It came probably as couscous, and maybe couscous was made this way. But the Mughrabiye pearls, the maftool, is made by rolling either coarse semolina or coarse burghul or cracked wheat,
Ah, yes.
uh, large basins with flour, water, oil, salt, and yeast. It's a very meticulous process, and mom still makes it. You have to roll it by alternating the wet and the dry mixture until you start piling the dough little by little onto these grains.
Wow.
And it goes from this tiny piece into maybe uh, chickpea size
Yep.
or even a little bit less. This is how my mom makes it. In Palestine and Jordan, I've seen it, they make it even smaller.
Wow.
So it takes time to make it, but
Yeah.
mom loves to even bigger. And then that is steamed on top of a bone broth with lots of aromatics and chickpeas and baby onions. And then we eat it by having the grains and the stew over it.
Oh,
Uh, we
beautiful.
always we always have people over. It's never a dish that is made for two or three. We always have people over to make it, and it's one of the cultural things that I connect with my Palestinian roots, and I love to share it because very few people know about how maftool is made.
Sounds like a beautiful dish. And a hearty dish too, and a dish that can feed a community. It's a community
Yes.
orientated dish. I love it. Yeah. What would real peace or healing look like to you? Not from politicians, but from people.
Oof. I think having equal rights as everyone. Um, and that's where the healing process and peace will come on. That's where the healing process comes after. And I don't know. I don't know. I think We just have to see how it unfolds by having everyone equal.
Yeah. Well, like you mentioned before, Palestinians feel like second class citizens in their own land, which is
Yeah.
heavily occupied. I think definitely the first step would be, hey, we're all equal. You're equal, I'm equal, everyone's equal. Maybe that's the bare minimum, but hopefully, I only hope that they can get achieved in our lives. Um, yeah, it's very sad, man. Ever since I was 12 years old, I understood the plight of the Palestinians, and it's heartbreaking. It's like what's the word? The It's like the out of the whole world, it's the neglected child. It's the neglected and wounded energy that comes. That's it's just continued, and everyone just looks away. They don't want to fix or help, or you know what I mean. That's what it's felt like
Yeah,
for
the way they say, everything, it shouldn't, we don't want to talk about politics, but I'm fine with having Palestinian stuff, and best let's not talk politics because it's too hard to address, but everything is proving to be political right now. And what irritates me the most is that it's not just with Palestine. I think there is a whole system to be dismantled that is abusing uh, anywhere where they feel that they can abuse. So whether it's Congo, it's Sudan, it's um, I don't know what else now. I think there's a long list of places that are being abused, and
big time.
they're probably not as trendy for people to talk about them.
Well, the
And they're
media
forgetting
might not be talking about it because the media might be paid to not talk about it. You know what I mean? So currently, right now, there's more wars, there's more domestic conflicts and international conflicts than there was when World War II started. Right
yeah,
now, there's
I
more
think
than
so.
there was when World War II started. So what does that say? Which way we're heading? What trajectory? I hope not. I think you know the way that consciousness was going. I think it was going in the right direction. I don't know what exactly happened, but it steered into the potentially wrong direction. But I only
Yeah,
hope that we can go back on track very soon, and
I hope
everything,
so.
and with maybe with AI, the AI can say, "Hey, everyone deserves to be equal. We got universal basic income. Look after the Palestinians." um,
I hope so. It's really, really tough to have this continuously happening for 78 years
that's right.
and not seeing any prospect of change.
Yeah. If someone had never met a Palestinian before, what would you want them to understand about your people?
That we're the same. We are people who want to live, who want to feel equal, and that's it. We're not that different, but we experienced a lot of stuff that made us rougher in a different way. We endured stuff that gave us different experiences and probably made us build shields or certain perspectives. So just to be understanding of what they went through, and that's it. It shouldn't be uh, like an all pass thing. I think we go into the reverse way, like the same way it happened with the Jews in Europe, where they were wronged, and that gave them an extra pass to have to do anything. And this is where we reach now. So if we go and then we say, "Oh, okay, you're Palestinian, you can do anything," it might lead to different types of problems. But I think we should be treated as equal rights, and punishment in case we go wrong.
I think that's the yeah. I think that's fair, and yeah, definitely. If there's any Palestinian food places around Melbourne, I'm going to be definitely sussing them out now. You've made me hungry for Palestinian type food, and I'll be getting your book, and definitely I'll put in the description, in the YouTube, your channel. I'll put in the links for your books so people can purchase your books, And I really appreciate your time today, man. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for having the time to speak to me.
Thank you so much. I'm available as well if you want to chat as well. I'm on social media
Yep.
if anyone is interested to talk as well. Th- this is how we keep conversations happening and seeing different perspectives and point of views instead of just blocking people immediately by when they start accusing. Like
Yeah.
I would block people if they start accusing me or being dismissive.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to have conversations that are on a human level and have a back and forth talk about it without really judging or trying to dismiss or cancel the other.
Yeah, I believe strongly in that, and I think we've achieved that here today. So it's a beautiful thing. So uh,
And cheer on. I hope you get to do that with the podcast that you're doing.
yeah, thank you very much for coming on, and thank you everybody for listening and tuning in. And I'll see you next time. Bye.
وأرض المرسلين فلسطين يا روح الروح إحنا مش ناسين فلسطين 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 يا حبيبة يا فلسطين